Passing of Pope Francis has impacted people across the globe. Here in Portland, those who knew him and parishioners alike are mourning the loss of a pope they say was an inspiration for many.
Fox 12's Julia Lopez joins us live in studio with how the Pope is being remembered by local clergy who worked alongside him.
Yes, well, as Catholics around the world, as you said, are mourning the loss of Pope Francis, he's remembered quite fondly in the Archdiocese of Portland, where one bishop who saw him often says he'll remember the Pope for his mercy and for a light that he says drew people in.
If you're a pastor, you need to be out among your people, serving your people, not sitting in the office or doing whatever.
That's one message central to Pope Francis's papacy, according to Auxiliary Bishop Peter Smith of the Archdiocese of Portland, as he reflects on the life of the man who chose him. Since Smith was appointed by Pope Francis in 2014, he's traveled from Portland to Rome once or twice a year to work alongside him and other bishops at the Vatican. He describes those moments as just a group of pastors talking.
Very personable, very friendly, very engaging. And the meetings that we would have with him was never like, I've got this to tell you. It was, what shall we talk about?
He was struck by the Pope's simplicity, living at the Vatican guest house instead of the papal palace.
Behind you turn around, and there he is in the cafeteria line getting his food, chatting with people.
Smith got to learn some of Pope Francis's unique life story.
Very interesting thing about Pope Francis. Before he joined the Jesuits and became a pope, he was actually a bouncer at a bar. And a young man. So I saw this wonderful meme that came out, you may be cool, but you'll never be as cool as I was a bouncer and then became Pope of the Catholic Church. Cool.
He says it's that ability to connect that will remain a part of the Pope's legacy, making the Church's teachings more accessible for everyone, as he prioritized going out into the community over presiding from the palace. A local priest shares that widespread impact.
He was a great inspiration for me in my priesthood. To different types of people, different cultures. It's a global church. He gave that belonging to me.
Bishop Smith says once the Vatican shares its plan for the viewing of the Holy Father, a Requiem Mass in memory of Pope Francis will be held at St. Mary's Cathedral in downtown Portland. Live in studio, Julia Lopez, Fox 12 Oregon.